All right, welcome. I'm Joe Murphy, and I'm glad to be here. And want to get started. Let me get our presentation up and running, and we will get started in just a second. Well, here we go. I want to start from the beginning. Might be helpful if I started in the beginning. Look at all these slides he's got. Y'all are doing a speed reading class. Sorry about this. Let's get to the beginning, Joseph. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. Sorry about the PowerPoint presentation as I was going through it, but now you've seen the whole presentation and we're done. So thank you for coming, and the program's over. That was a joke. Don't everybody take it so seriously, all right? Geraldine, why don't you?
Hi, Joe.
Thank
How are you?
Good.
I would like to say hello to everybody as well, and welcome to this masterclass. But before we start, I would like to say some words about you, because we are honored to have you here with us. Welcome. As you know, Mr. Murphy is the expert in negotiations and techniques and body languages. Thank you, Mr. Murphy, for being with us. He's a professional speaker and executive coach. He has written 4 books already, and he has 2 more to come soon. I hope so. He runs a leadership academy, which for those that doesn't know, is a program where companies hire him to teach success and leadership to their employees. Mr. Murphy is also a former senior executive of the Fortune 50 and 1000. He has more than 30 years of business experience. Thank you very much for being, once again, thank you with us. I just can't wait for the masterclass.
Thank you, Geraldine. That was great. I appreciate. I don't think I'm an expert. I've made a lot of mistakes. You're going to hear about my mistakes, and hopefully you're going to all hear about some of my successes. I recognize a lot of faces from LinkedIn. I want to thank you all for being here. Let's do a quick introduction of ourselves before I get started. Is everybody familiar with a quick introduction? Everybody you have to take yourselves off mute. Everybody has to take themselves off mute. Take yourself off mute. And what we're going to do is you're going to say your name, the city you're in, and then the country you're from, because we're going to have people from 71 countries, I think, that are registered. So on the count of 3, I want you to get it right. Your name, the city, and the country you're calling from, or you're working from. All right. You got to lean in, and you got to say it with some amount of enthusiasm. If you don't say it with some amount of enthusiasm, then I'm going to be very disappointed. All right, are you ready? On the count of 3. Your name, ready? Your city, and the country. All right, 1, 2, 3.
I'm so happy to be here.
All right, that was not much enthusiasm. I don't know what time it is where you are, but we need some more coffee for some people somewhere. All right, that was great. Thank you very much. We're going to figure out who's from where. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our sponsors for the Negotiations for Project Managers educational program here, a part of PMI. I want to point out over here on the left-hand side, as you'll notice, and hopefully you'll be able to see my pointer. No, yeah, you can. Sometimes the pointer works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not going to try to do the pointer with the marker because that gets all confusing. But you see the PDU code here. This is where you can get credit for attending this program. We want to make sure you're getting credit. All right. I want to thank the sponsors for PMI from Slovenia, Ecuador, Mexico, Peru, Chile, and República Dominicana. Very good. Thank you very much. I also want to thank the Holistic PMC for sponsoring this as well, and also Silver Quality consultants from Ecuador, but they do quality assurance, and they're up on the latest technologies, working with clients worldwide through the through Zoom and programs like this. So they're available for consulting and also different parts and different things that they can do for you. Wendy Plata's on the call, and she can just wave her hand. If you need some business, we'll go there. All right, what did I miss from here? I don't think I missed anything. All right, so this is the program. Let's go. This is a program on body language in negotiations. We're not going to cover all of negotiations, but I'm going to cover the key parts of body language. I want to also recognize that we've got a lot of people here from various universities around the world, and I think this is a really exciting thing for you all to be here. So let me do this. I'm going to mute everybody so we don't have any background noise. But you can take yourself off mute for questions. And let's see what else I want to say about this. Okay, I think that's it. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, again, thank you once more. Don't want to forget our sponsors. All right, I want to point out on Saturday next week, we're going to do, because there's so much material in negotiating, we're going to do some role playing and breakout sessions. It's going to be a workshop. And I think you're going to find it very exciting. Lebo and I will be doing, Lebo here on the right-hand side from South Africa, and I will be doing a role play. We'll show you some one-on-one instructions on negotiations and what works and what doesn't. And hopefully you'll be able to pick up some of the things that we've covered here today. My background is, as pointed out so nicely about Geraldine, I run something called the Leadership Academy. We do this worldwide. I've got several clients. I think I recognize some people. How many clients do I have without mentioning companies? Can you just raise your hand that I've worked with in the past? Just raise. How many? One. I know there's another one, another toe. Okay. All right. 2, 3. All right. Thank you. Thank you for showing up and being here this morning. I've done about 500 of these sessions now, 25, 30,000 attendees. We really have a positive introduction rate. What we do is we show videos. I show videos typically on leadership and success, and I get small clips of people who are what I would call thought leaders, people who have experience in their field, and then we comment on it. And I facilitate the discussion, and it really turns out to be a great discussion. It's very similar to what we're doing here today. All right, so this is effective body language in negotiations. And we're going to cover a lot of things today. There's going to be just a lot of information, and there's going to be a chance for you to ask questions. You use the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat as well. I will also be able to I'll try to answer questions as we go through. But because there's so much material, I'm going to stay at the end as long as you'd like, answer questions. And if there are more times to show video at the end, I'll do that. But first, let's go to talking about body language is key to gaining trust. Who are the best negotiators? Does anybody know who the best negotiators are? You can use the chat right now as to who you think the best negotiators are. Lance Wheeler.
What about the sales?
Wendy. All right. Kids. Jennifer. Who else? Don't be shy. Salespeople and lawyers. Mariana. Kids. People communication with expression. Vendors. Yes. Ladies are the best negotiators. Okay, Mahesh. Thanks. Okay. Children. All right. Let's go and find out who the best negotiators are. My family members, yes, that's true. Mothers and children, strong negotiators. Very good, very good. Let's see who the best ones are. Let's watch this video.
Dad, can I have some ice cream?
No, buddy, it's almost time for bed.
Don't let this happen to you. I'm gonna teach you how to get what you want from your parents. Let's do that again. Dad, I really missed you today. Can we share a bowl of ice cream and talk about our day?
Sure, buddy.
Yes! You gotta figure out what's important to your parents. For Dad, it's quality time. And for Mom, it's something else. Mom, can I play my video game?
Honey, you already played your video game today.
Let's do that again. Mama, can I do that for you so you can take a nap? That is so sweet of you. Yes, thank you, honey. Thank you, I love you. And when I'm done, I'll quietly play my video game. Just because it works for me doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. You gotta figure it out yourself. Got it? Got it. Go get it. Hey, Dad, wanna play with fire?
What?
Beginners.
All right. I love that video. Daddy, can we play with fire? What?
Dad, can
All right, let's go forward. So here's the agenda. What is a negotiation? We're gonna play a couple games today, myth or fact game. What are the 15 or so critical body language elements to look out for, to be alert to? And we're gonna get into, and you'll see this in a second, how do you demonstrate your best self? And I'm gonna give you some negotiation tools for you to use. Whether you can apply them to work, and I want you to practice them. I'll talk about that later. Let's go to the next slide. So there are three major parts of this presentation. We're gonna go through body language. We're gonna discuss your mindset and your body language and how it's how you can use it so that you can move people to what I would call an open stance so that they can be ready for negotiating. So let's get to the next one. We're going to cover these major points throughout this presentation. You're going to see what is a negotiation. How do we read a person? What are the signals that we're sending to others? And how do we influence the other person? A couple of books that I recommend. Getting Past No is something that I've used in the past. Getting to Yes, these are from Harvard Business School. They're older books, but they're great books. I recommend Getting Past No over Getting to Yes. Most people like Getting to Yes. This is a quick definition. Negotiation is a basic means of getting what you want from others. It's a back and forth communication designed to get agreement. Nothing earth-shattering there. But I'm going to show you a different definition later. All right, let's play a game. And you're going to have to take yourself off mute to play the game again. All right. From around the world, we're going to hear different voices. So far, we've got, I guess, what do you have, about 69 different people from around the world. Thank you. So everyone take yourself off mute. We're going to play the myth or fact game. All right, get ready. Myth or fact. All negotiations are about beating the other party.
Myth.
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 Myth. Myth.
Myth.
All right, I heard a lot of myths and a couple facts. A couple people have no. Okay, let's get to whether it's myth or fact. It is a myth. It's not about beating the other party. Okay, you're going to see this throughout. How do we gain agreement? All right, let's play this one. We negotiate every day. Fact or myth or fact?
Fact.
Yes.
Fact.
Yes, we negotiate every day. Sometimes, if it's a big family, we have to negotiate for the bathroom first thing in the morning. So we have to negotiate traffic. We negotiate on conference calls with people. You negotiate with our spouse, our partner, our mate, our children. We negotiate with our neighbors. Sometimes that doesn't go as well as they can. All right, not speaking from experience. All right, fact or myth. It's easier to negotiate with someone with little or no experience in negotiating.
Myth.
Myth.
Who says it's a fact? Who says this is a fact?
Fact.
Got one fact.
Okay.
Two
Yeah.
facts. All right.
Fact.
We got two
I'll
facts.
go with fact.
No, we got three facts. Do I hear four? Do I hear four facts?
No,
Okay.
it's a myth. It's a myth. It's a myth.
Are some of you people who said myth earlier changing your mind to fact? Are you getting that feeling the pressure? It's a myth. You want to, if you have the opportunity, if you're negotiating with somebody who's a good negotiator, it's easier to negotiate with somebody who is less emotional typically. Good negotiators are not emotional. They try to understand what your needs are and they try to meet your needs. Now, not everyone is a good negotiator, by the way, but we're going to get into how to become a really good negotiator. Myth or fact? When someone folds their arms, they are defensive.
Myth.
Myth. Myth.
Myth or fact? And somebody's writing on the I think somebody is using the marker here, so that's interesting. All right, myth or fact? So if somebody folds their arm, they are defensive. It is a myth.
Myth.
Somebody said myth now. Good, very good. Wait till I get the answer and then you can scream it out. All right, myth or fact? When somebody covers their mouth, they're lying.
The fact.
Myth.
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 Getting a little bit harder now, aren't
I
they?
think it's a myth.
Yeah, we're gonna see. We're gonna see. This is a myth.
Is it? Oh, wow.
Yes, it's a myth. We've been misled. The last two, I thought for sure I heard these were like, all right, myth or fact? When somebody averts eye contact, they are lying.
Fact.
Fact. Fact.
A lot of facts here, a lot of facts. Let's find out.
Fact.
Myth.
Oh, it's a myth. Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
Me.
I'm going to show you why in just a second. We're going to have somebody from the FBI talk about why these are myths. All right. If you see your spouse in your best friend's car and they stick their tongues at you, you should be concerned. Myth or fact? Oh, wait a minute. That's the wrong slide. I got that from a family counseling session.
So funny.
All right.
I have
no
idea.
I tricked you. All right. So I got a laugh or two. This is going to be fun. I told you it'd be fun. So this is Joe Navarro. He's ex-FBI. I'm sorry if I'm screaming into the phone. I just so excited and I've had so much coffee. This is Joe Navarro. He's former FBI agent and he specialized in body language. He has a number of great books out there and another number of great videos out on YouTube. What I have done is I'm going to show you a couple clips from Joe Navarro. And he's going to talk about, because the FBI specializes, they bring in experts and they're looking for people's body language to see if people are lying or what they can determine. So let's get to Joe Navarro.
Nonverbals are anything that communicates but is not a word. The public knows them as body language. How we dress, how we walk, have meaning, and we use that to interpret what's in the mind of the person. My name is Joe Navarro, and for 25 years I was a special agent with the FBI. My job was to catch spies. Most of my career I spent within the National Security Division. A lot of it had to do with looking at specific targets, and then it was about, well, how do we get in their heads and how do we neutralize them? Our security is based on nonverbals. We look at the person through the peephole. We look at who's behind us at the ATM machine. We know from the research that most of us select our mates based on nonverbals. So we may think we're very sophisticated, but in fact, we are never in a state where we're not transmitting information. There's a lot of myths out there. The ones that stand out is if you cross your arms, that it's a blocking behavior. That's just nonsense. Even when you don't like the person that is in front of you, this isn't to block them out. It's actually to self-soothe. Because in essence, it's a self-hug. When you're sitting at a movie and you're watching, you're going to cross your arms. You're waiting for somebody, you tend to do this. What's interesting is we do this behavior more in public than in private. The other one that really stands out is as we think about something, we may look in a certain way. As we process the information, we may look in another way. It's certainly not indicative of deception, and it really shouldn't be used that way. All we can say is the person is processing the information. The other misconceptions are that if the person clears their throat, touches their nose, or covers their mouth, they're lying. We do these behaviors as self-soothers. They're pacifying behaviors scientifically and empirically There's just no Pinocchio effect. And people who prattle that and say, well, we can detect deception because the person touches their nose or covers their mouth, that's just sheer nonsense. We humans are lousy at detecting deception.
All right, there's Joe. We're going to see him more throughout this.
Nonverbals are
And,
anything
he's
that can...
going to help us. So I want to talk to you now on the next, I guess, couple of slides. There's probably 10 slides about what are the key body movements. There's over 300. There's a website that I can give later that has 300 different body movements, part of body language. But a lot of them they're very good, but those are not the key ones. So what I've done here with Joe's books and his videos to give you the key ones, and they're typically around the face. And the ones that I'm going to show you today, because we're spending an awful lot of time on Zoom and Teams and other forums, these apply even more because our faces are accentuated in these environments. So let's go to the first one. What does it mean when someone tilts their head? You're going to take yourself off mute for this one as well. What does it mean, A or B? It means that they're interested, involved, or they're doubtful. What do you all think?
Doubtful.
B.
B.
A lot of people saying
Being
B.
B.
A.
Doubtful.
Both.
Okay. Somebody's hedging their bets and saying both. Okay, okay. Juan Carlos is saying both too. It's sort of like putting like a chip on black and red at the roulette wheel. So, all right, when the head tilts a little bit, it's a sign of engagement. It's a sign of that they're interested, involved. In a primitive time, back in prehistoric times, we tilted our heads so we could hear better as well. And in business and at home, when a person tilts their head, it's a signal that they're interested and involved. But if this head is slow and deliberate withdrawal, that is moving backwards, it's a sign of disengagement. So tilting the head is like, huh, that's interesting. Okay. But if they pull it back, okay, it's a sign that they're uncomfortable. How about that? Helpful? Interesting? Tilted sides. All right.
Very.
Somebody shrug their shoulders. That doesn't mean I don't know, but let's see what it means. Are they angry? They are uncomfortable, or it's deference to status. What do I mean by deference to status? If your boss or your boss's boss comes to the office, it's like, oh, the boss's boss is here. What do you all think?
B.
Angkat. B. B. B.
B.
B.
C.
C.
Either B or C.
B.
All right.
B. B.
B.
Making you think, isn't it? Okay, just so
C
you know,
for me.
it can be both B and C. It's a sign that they're uncomfortable, or your boss's boss. And just watch your own body language. If somebody comes in that's high stature, this is an automatic shrinking feeling, almost like a turtle going into the shell a little bit. Just watch that for yourself, but watch for other people sometimes do that. Oh, the boss is okay. You see what I'm doing with my shoulders? All right. All right, next question. What if somebody holds their head up high? They are confident, it means nothing, or it means they're aloof. Aloof means, I don't really care.
Confident.
A.
But whoever said confident didn't say it very confidently. You have
Confident.
to say it with some confidence. Say confident.
Nothing.
A.
It's a B.
A and
That's
C.
me.
I want to
That's
hear,
confident.
Everybody say this with some confidence. They are.
A and C.
There you go.
Confident zone.
A.
Click on the
B.
question.
B.
A.
Yes, better.
B.
better.
B.
Does everybody hear what I'm saying? Listen, watch. Listen to how I say it. They are confident. Does that sound very confident? They are confident. Is that the answer? They are confident. Or how about this? They are confident. They are confident. Everybody say it.
B.
Say it differently. They are
B.
confident.
They're
They're
It's
confident.
A.
I want you to
Aloof.
say they are confident. This is the answer. They are confident.
They
All
are
right.
confident.
Yes, but you gotta say it confidently. Good. This is a, when somebody lowers their head, what does it mean? It's low confidence. All right. What does it mean when someone nods their head? Wow. There's approval, understanding, or agreement. Indicates an ongoing interest in whoever is
A.
speaking. Signals impatience. Signals listeners' desire to get a turn to speak.
Yeah, I'll go with A.
I think it's A.
Approval,
The B.
understanding, or agreement. Yeah.
I think it's
A and B. A and B. It is B.
B.
It's a B. It's a B.
Say A.
I'll give everybody a
A
chance.
and B.
C.
It's A and B.
Is everybody ready for the answers? Is everybody done?
Yes.
Yes.
How about all four?
All right.
All right, I want you to, but at least in the United States. So, there are customs that are a little bit different, but in the United States, we're a very impatient group of people, aren't we? So it's usually, it's universal that it's under approval, understanding, or agreement. Everybody gets that. It's also indicates, depending on the circumstances, an ongoing interest in whoever is speaking. It's like, oh, okay. And then this one, it signals impatience, like, come on, get on with it. Is everybody with me? Come on. Okay. But you're not actually saying it. You're going, okay, we got it, hurry. Then the last one is, this is the person who's desiring to speak. And so we have to watch out for these because they don't always mean that they're in agreement. The last one is, this is signaling he wants or she wants the person to get up, get over, get finished because it's my turn to speak.
Right.
Does that make sense, everybody? Do you see?
Yes, it does.
It does.
Yes.
Yep.
It
Makes
is.
sense.
Yeah.
Is this
awesome
good? Y'all
learning.
liking this little way that we do the training here?
Awesome.
We
Yeah.
do. We do.
Lovely.
I think it's great.
Awesome.
Right. All right. Look, how about this one? What does it mean when somebody touches their head or their face? Does it mean that they're lying or hiding something? They want to still make sure their head is still on their neck.
C.
C.
Or they're
C.
self-soothing because they're under stress.
The.
I think it's C.
C. Lock it in, Joe.
C. There it is.
All right. Remember,
C.
remember, he actually said this, Joe Navarro said, if people are touching their face, it's self-soothing, typically but here's the key part, because they're under stress. All right. So it might be someone's self-soothing and they're doing some things like that. They may be under stress. And it as a negotiator or a person who is interested in body language, we want to understand better what that stress is about. And there's different ways to get there. Obviously, ask the question. Also, some other self-soothers are, and we won't get into the sexual aspect or the mating aspect of it because there's some misnomers there too. When women twirl their hair, okay, that's a self-soother often. Okay, men may stroke their beards for psychological comfort. Okay, but it's a fast release for stressful situations. People will trust their chin, they'll touch their lips, they'll touch their nose, their forehead. These are just like somebody will do something like this, but they're not covering their face. They're just rubbing it. They're going, it's a calming effect. All right.
Very interesting.
How about this one? This person's got wide eyes. Does everybody see that? What does it mean when somebody has wide eyes?
C.
Surprise. C or D?
C or D.
Oh, C.
The C.
Looks
C.
happy.
It is a C.
All of them.
Yeah, it's a C.
Well, I think
All of them.
if you're in pain,
Both.
you might have wide eyes,
I'll
except that you
see.
wouldn't have the
See.
smile on your face. But all right, when somebody has wide eyes, wide in nature, or their eyebrows rise, they're signaling approval and surprise. You'll see a miniature of this version is being expressed when someone is discussing something that they like very much. So you'll see a very miniature version of this person's picture, like this. Okay, interesting. A narrowing of the eyes. What does a narrowing of the eyes do?
Something they're suspecting,
Yeah.
or something that's focused.
Yeah.
Narrow
It
eyes.
could be focused. That's actually a very good one. I think yes on that one.
Curious.
Another one, it could be physical or emotional pain when their eyes
Curious.
narrow a little bit. So just be alert to
Curiosity.
those things. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, oops, sorry. That's wide eyes. All right, you're supposed to laugh at that, okay? All right, what does it mean when someone's pupils dilate? The person is unhappy. I hope you can see the screen.
They're interested.
They're interested and may buy something.
They're interested.
It's completely out of their control. Salespeople look for this.
B, they are interesting. B, they're interested and may buy something. All of them.
All of them except A.
I'd say B and D.
I will give you the answers. It is B, C, and D. We have no control over our eyes dilating. And good salespeople instinctively watch for this. They may not recognize it as something to look out for, but you can train yourself to become observant. But good salespeople know when this is happening because they've seen it so many times before. Somebody bought something, so they could tell, I think this person's getting ready to buy. And they don't know exactly why, but they get a feeling. It's typically because of the pupils dilating, they get larger. This does not signal the person is unhappy. So it's it's B, C, and D. When it's completely out of our control, it's part of our limbic system. And our limbic system is part of our brain that we have no control over. And Joe Navarro is going to talk about that in a little bit too. All right. If the person's pupils contract, this should be easy. What's the answer? This is the opposite of dilate. If the pupils get smaller.
A.
A. That's correct. Good job.
Say A.
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 All right. What happens if the person begins to blink faster?
Nervous.
They
Nervous.
have something in their eye. The lights may be bright. They may be experiencing stress or pressure, or they have something concealing to hide.
Would be A and C.
C. Yeah. And C.
Except D. Except D. All.
All right.
All.
It could be that the lights are bright. It could be they have something in their eye.
Yeah.
It's typically they're concealing something. This is a sign that they're concealing something. In the United States, we had a past president, George Bush, when he was first going on the campaign trail, he blinked a lot. He blinked a lot, and they corrected it because it was sending signals to other people that he was concealing something. So they trained him not to blink his eyes so much. That was a long time ago, President George Bush. All right, how about, we'll have a few more of these, then we're gonna go to a video, and then we're gonna go into body language. How's this going? Is everybody picking up on the essence, how this works? Because you're watching.
Yes,
Good stuff.
Very
Thanks, Joe.
interesting.
Very interesting.
Good, good. All right, what does it mean when somebody covers or their eyes or closes their eyes? They're protecting their brain from seeing undesirable images. It's an unconscious gesture or survival mechanism. When someone doesn't want to see you, or you don't want to see the other person, includes rubbing and closing the eyes and using the hand to cover the eyes.
A, B, and D.
Or C.
A except
B.
C.
It's actually all four of them.
Except B.
We instinctively cover our eyes because we don't want to see something undesirable. We may do it this way with our hand like this. We may be in a negotiation, and you'll see, I have a picture in just a second of somebody doing it. Somebody does this. So we have to watch out for that. But we also have to be clear that sometimes people are just rubbing their eyes because they've been in a negotiation for a long time or in a meeting for a long time. It's a unconscious gesture and survival mechanism so that they cover their eyes to get away from. And if we're trying to avoid someone, okay, you may not actually see yourself do it, but you do something like this. Oh no, he's here. I can't believe he just came in. You all know, you know what I'm talking? Have you ever, you're like, oh no, there he is. I don't want him to see me. Okay, you're really not covering up the person, but that happens also. It's a natural reaction. We have no control over it. Here's some examples. Even a child will pull down a hat when they've done something wrong, and they don't want to be scolded. So different ways of doing something. It's doing the same thing. All right. When someone raises their eyebrows, it means something, means nothing.
It means something.
Means
Yes, it
something.
means something.
Yeah.
It means something.
Yeah.
Big.
Something. It's like, it's a sign of, it can be in some ways a sign of submission or a request for approval. Okay, so watch yourself and your eyes when you are trying to get approval from someone and you don't know it. Watch it if you are, watch out if you're doing, if you're in a submission, like your boss may be saying something to you and you're like your submission. And this is a way to show that you're, being submissive. But it's something to look out for. It's not a very powerful thing. But on other hand, and I think I've got a video of this, and I'm going to show you something that you want to do when you're shaking hands with somebody, at least in the United States. And again, once you do this, you want to be careful because some of the things don't translate to all cultures, and you got to be culturally aware. So just be alert to this. But a lot of these things that are in the limbic system are universal across all cultures, like closing the eyes. Let's see, anything else I want to say? This might be also a way of saying, did I get it right? What do you think of what I just said? So if you just said something, now you're seeking approval, you might raise your eyebrows like that. You're making a statement and you raise your eyebrows. And again, you're trying to get it's a request for approval. What else do I want to say? I think that's good. All right.
Sorry, Joe.
Yes, I'm
we
sorry.
have a question here from
Yes.
WP. It's
All
a
right.
message. The question is, Joe, what do you suggest to be aware about those signals of body language?
What do I suggest? I think this is a real critical thing because when we're working with people, whether they're our boss or the people who work for us, whether it's a spouse or partner, people are signaling to us all the time. And you want to make sure that you understand that if they have a question or they don't, or if something that you said was not received properly, and you may have to ask in a question back to the person by saying something to the effect of, did I make sense? Did I say something that is confusing? And you pause and then you can wait for a response. Because we're always communicating. If we're not communicating verbally, we're communicating with our gestures. And we want to come across to someone when we're communicating, especially in negotiations. But we want to communicate positively to everyone. That would be my advice, my counsel. And that means, and I'm going to touch on this later, we want to be congruent with our thoughts, our heart, and our body language. And I'll talk about that later. Because when you're congruent with your thoughts, your heart, and your body language, what I call the hands, and again, I'll show you this in a second, you come across as authentic, you come across as reliable, you come across as trustworthy. Does that make sense, everybody? Is that helpful?
Yes.
Yes.
Because that is.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let's go to
Yes.
Joe Navarro, because Joe Navarro is going to talk to us about what it means for smiling, because there's a lot of different types of smiles. Our face is probably the most important thing to watch. Sure, there's tapping of the foot, there's our hand gestures, but our face is where we want to spend most of our attention. Here's Joe Navarro.
From the time we're born, we spend an inordinate amount of time studying each other's faces. As babies, we can recognize that big smile that we see of that caring mother looking down on us and so forth. But we're confronted with many variants of that. Just take a look at these. All examples of smiles. Some come to us, they're very genuine. Some are a little reserved. Some are a little nervous. They're all smiles. But what are they communicating? My name's Joe Navarro, and for 25 years, I was a spy catcher for the FBI. You may be familiar with my previous video. I talked about body language. There's just no Pinocchio effect. And people who prattle that and say, well, we can detect deception because the person touches their nose or covers their mouth. That's just sheer nonsense. And today, we're going to focus on the face. When it comes to nonverbals, the face is key. There's so much information and feelings that we receive from the face that for us, the face takes primacy. So one of the ways to look at the face is to think of it in two areas, comfort and discomfort, because really that's how the brain reacts to the world. So let's start with psychological comfort. When we're very comfortable, the muscles of the face become very relaxed, and we have all the behaviors that are associated with it. Smiling, laughing. Usually the pupils are slightly wider, the lips are full, and usually the chin tends to be further out. The very second that there's psychological discomfort, usually it begins to register in several areas. Now, for some people, we'll see it in the forehead and here between the eyes, where there'll be furrowing of the forehead or squinting. And of course, the tucking down of the chin, or in some instances where something is really emotional, you'll see the chin begins to vibrate. Covering of the eyes also is a display of psychological discomfort. So our faces, what we feel in that moment, is immediately displayed by our nonverbals. And the easiest way to look at it is that behavior consistent with comfort, or is it consistent with discomfort? One of the questions that I'm often asked is, how do we read each other? How do we read each other's faces? We start with the hair, how it's combed, what color it is it dry, is it wet, is it curly, is it disarranged? As children, we play with each other's hair, we look at each other's hair, we immediately notice when it's wet or dry or it's changed in some form. We look at the forehead for information. When it's smooth, the forehead tells us that everything is well and placid. When it's furrowed, we begin to notice that perhaps there's some sort of discomfort. The eyebrows. You know, the arching of the eyebrows is our exclamation point. Doing that eyebrow flash when we see someone we recognize and we go, hey, how are you? The glabella, this little area between the eyes. Someone says something we don't like, and we might squint at them and look at them askance. The nose. Do we wrinkle our nose upward? We do that bunny nose. At about 3 months of age, babies are already doing this when they don't like something they're being offered. And then there's the lips, which convey so much information. Maybe as often as the eyes, I'm asked about smiles. We have the social smile. The interested smile. The curious smile. We have little secretive smiles that we might give to someone that we're interested in. There is so much to our mouths. It's so expressive. But starting at a very young age, we're already focusing on these things. You may not notice, for instance, the pupils, whether they're wide or narrowed, but subconsciously your brain is assessing this information. There's just so much there. So we never stop communicating with our faces. It is something that is always telegraphing our emotions and our sentiments, and sometimes even our desires.
All right. Very good video from Joe. I'm going to answer a couple of questions. Wendy asked the question, how does this, can this be all applied to, let me get my video on, so that, can this all be applied to being virtual? I think it absolutely is, yes, because this is why I'm spending so much time with the facial parts of it, because we are virtual, I guess, at least 50% of the time. Many of us might be 90%. And so this is really where we have to practice. And when I say practice, we have to be alert and aware and more conscious of how we're coming across to others. One of the things that I'm going to suggest to you all right now is making sure your computers or your laptops or your cameras are at least eye level. Okay, you don't want to be this, okay, looking this way or looking down. And the worst one I have seen is when somebody has multiple screens. Can everybody see my face? Can everybody see me?
Yes.
Everybody hear me? So I'm going to
Yes,
turn sideways. I don't have a good profile, and you don't want to see my profile. If I'm looking over here because I have a report and the camera is here, I have lost my audience. It is one of the worst things to do. And I see so many technical people, especially project people, but we do this because we're looking over here and we forget our audience is here, and we need to figure out how we're going to move that bigger screen behind us so it's up higher. And so that you're looking at the screen and looking at the report instead of them seeing the side of your face. Because what you're signaling to the other person subconsciously is you're not worth very much. The other thing that I want you to do on Zoom, besides lifting up your cameras, and you can do that today, but you want to bring it up to eye level, but you don't want to stare into the camera. It will give you a bad effect. You do want to look at the camera every once in a while, but you can look down at the material right below the camera. The other thing you want to try, instead of being squared up, turn slightly to the side, just slightly. Now, Joe Navarro talks about this when he in his negotiations. Okay, just slightly to the side. Even if you're in a conference room and you're talking to somebody, turn slightly to the side. But make sure your shoulders are squared and you're sitting up straight. Don't look down, don't be hunched over, and don't do this. This is a bad thing. And many people do this because they're nearsighted now. We're getting a little bit older. When you're looking down, can everybody see my glasses on? What happens when we're doing this is we're signaling that we're looking down on you. It's a sign that I'm superior and I'm looking down at you. Even though we're using this to read this way, to read something because of our nearsightedness. Just be careful, pull it back up on your face and use it this way. Even though you might not be able to see the screen because you're looking, because it's nearsighted glasses. Sideways, get the screen up higher so that you're communicating to the person. I see we have some more messages here. Okay. This is very important for us to come across as credible, because we want it. There's very little that we have. We have expertise and we have our credibility. And if we have expertise with no credibility or no character or no trust, our expertise is worthless because people will not trust us. In fact, because we're such good experts, or we have so much expertise, if we don't have that character, that foundational aspect, and we're going to get into this now in just a second, we've lost all hope of getting a deal done, negotiating properly, having a likability, and creating more business for ourselves. Now, this is going to lead us to part two. This is the exciting part. I'm glad we're here. Does this make sense where I'm to make
From the time we're born.
Let me get Joe out of the way. I want to talk about using your body language. Okay. Does this make sense?
It does.
Okay.
I think
Yes.
everything was great.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
learned a lot, especially my side.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Just want to make sure everybody's tracking with me, because now we're going to get into how you can become an established credibility, how you can become a great negotiator, a great person of influence, because all negotiation is influence, persuasion. And it's not persuasion like we're trying to sell somebody, trying to convince them, beating them. I'm using a hammer, like we're beating them over the head with a hammer, trying to convince them. It's about understanding what they need, what they want. And those are two different things. All right, so let's get to this. I call this the Murphy's hierarchy of pyramid. You know, there's 5 different aspects. We're going to cover these 3 today. Your philosophy, preparation to get in, but we're going to spend most of our time here in the arena where we're negotiating. And so we're going to go through the next couple of slides. I want to talk about mindset. Your mindset is critical to success, whether you're playing sports, whether you're in a sales presentation, whether you're a lawyer in a courtroom, whether you're a physician meeting with a patient, or whether you're negotiating. Your mindset is critical. And I want to call out several things to get your mindset in order. This is from Stephen Covey. And I want you to read this quote for me, someone. Would somebody volunteer to read this quote for me?
I can.
Okay, go ahead, please.
We judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their behavior.
Yes.
This is Stephen M.R. Covey, Speed of Trust, the one thing that changes everything.
Yes, very good. Thank you so much. We judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their behavior. Now, we can flip that on somebody else because they do the same thing with us. We don't intend things to come across the wrong way, but sometimes they do because somebody's judging our behavior. But then they say, that was not my intention. So this is a critical thing in understanding mindsets. I'm reading the chats. All right. Let's go over to the next slide. All negotiations require trust. And I want to point out, this is called an open palm. I have used this technique or this skill in negotiations a lot, where I come in and I'm sitting across from somebody. It doesn't quite work on screen or virtually, but can you all see my hands? No. But if I go like this, and if I angle it better, I'm looking at the other screen, I say, look, I would like to talk to you about some of the things. What it does, it signals to somebody that in prehistoric times, it shows that we don't have weapons. I have used it. Now, I will say this, Joe Navarro said that's not true, but I have used it to a great deal of my negotiations. But it requires trust. And I don't use it as a technique, but I do use it as to show people that I'm here and I want to make sure that we achieve results. I want to also point out that that I want you to get in your mindset here that never see negotiations as a fight. Don't ever see it as a win-lose proposition. I'll get into win-win in just a second. So clear that out of your mind. Look at it as an opportunity for you to develop a relationship with somebody, and look at it in the terms of a long-term relationship. That'll shift your entire mindset. okay, especially when you're dealing with clients, okay? This is not necessarily when buying a car or not necessarily when buying a home. That I'll discuss later after the program for Q&A, because you're not looking for a long-term relationship with the car salesperson unless you buy a car every 2 years. But you are looking to develop a relationship with a client, and you want it to be a positive one where there are many interactions. All right. You want to see it as building a bridge. And when I say building a bridge, you want to be able to help that other person to get to the other side where you are, or meet somewhere in the middle. Don't look at meeting in the middle as a bad thing. Okay. There's a couple of concepts, other concepts that I want to go through. How many people have heard the term neural Wi-Fi? Does everybody know what I mean by neural?
No. Yes.
No.
Yes.
Neural. Your
Yes.
brain.
No. Yes.
So some researchers have discovered something called mirror neurons. And mirror neurons were discovered with monkeys who were feeding monkeys. And what would happen was some of their neurons would fire off and actually make a noise. And what happened was one of the researchers went into the monkey's food, or the monkey was watching the researcher eat food. And what happened was the monkeys, because it was the monkeys that were watching this, their brains were still connected to the device. Their brains started to fire off as if they were eating food. They were watching somebody else eat, a human being, a different species, but their brains fired off as well. So as the researchers did more research on this, they discovered that mirror neurons are actually a great way to connect emotionally with others. In fact, you can, if you're positive, and you've noticed this, if your energy is positive to a degree, you can connect and their energy will also be positive. Now, Daniel Goleman, who wrote the book on emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and this is where it comes from, his book, Social Intelligence. Daniel Goleman talks about this to a great degree. People can pick up on our moods and our intentions. In fact, one of his fellow colleagues, Dr. Fabio Sala, anybody from Italy, he did research in Italy, being in a good mood, other research has found or finds, helps people take in information effectively and respond nimbly and creatively. So helping people become in a good mood, yourself being in a good mood, also allows you to become even more creative. And you can, by doing that, in signaling good moods and being in a good mood, you find that in a negotiation that makes all parties more susceptible or more trying to be creative to figure out how both parties can get their needs met. There's another thing that's very closely related to this, and has anybody heard the term sympathetic resonance?
No.
Nope.
No. Okay, sympathetic resonance. Those of you who are musicians know this already, and you're waiting to see if I know what it is. If you touch the note of high C on the piano over here on the left-hand side, and I'm watching my screen, my pointer. Let's see if this works. If you touch it over here, and is that working? No, is that working? Over here on the note of high C, over here, the strings or the chords on the second piano will vibrate in sympathetic resonance with what you touched over here. So if you touch the key over here, not only does this piano vibrate, but this one does too. It's very similar to what they call tuning forks. Tuning fork will vibrate over here. If you touch it, the second one also vibrates. We vibrate outward how we feel. And these mirror neurons pick up on, and it senses if someone's in a good mood. But we're also watching facial expressions. And this is what I always tell people in leadership classes. If you're a manager and you're walking through the office and you had a fight with your spouse that morning and your face is turned down and you're like, oh, People are reading your mind, but they're reading it from a place of fear. Chris Rock has done studies on this. He's a neuroscientist. And he said, our brain picks up 5 times a second, and it's continually doing this. It's looking for whether we should be fearful in a situation. 5 times a second, it's going, should I be fearful? Should I be fearful? Should I be fearful? Because of how we're wired. So be careful how you come across. Watch your face, watch your body language. If you had a fight, make up with your spouse before you come to the office, change your face, put on a smile, but put on a real smile. And when you start to smile, what happens is your own neurons start firing, and you start to feel better. It's hard to do sometimes, but it's things that you need to do. If you ever find yourself, these are concepts before we actually even get started. If you ever find yourself in a fight, and I want you to practice this at home. If you're in a fight with your partner, your children, your argument, discussion, or whatever, drop the rope. Let go of the rope. And come to the table with the attitude of, okay, how can I help you get what you want? How can I help you? It switches up the dynamic. And this is something that you can practice not only at home, but in the office. You can do this with a car mechanic. If you have a car mechanic, you can do this with anybody, because as soon as you drop the rope, the whole dynamic changes. So these concepts are important before we even get into the discussion. Let's talk to Joe Navarro here. Let me turn off my sensor and get back to my pointer. All right, here's Joe Navarro.
More. One of the things that I teach is that synchrony is harmony. So the more that I can get the other party to relax, to mirror my behaviors, the more I know that we are in synchrony. And that's powerful because we are both engaging each other at a conscious and at a subconscious level.
This is a critical thing, and this goes back to the harmony aspect of it.
More. One of the things.
All right, so let's talk about the 5th concept. This is win-win or no deal. What I propose to you all is a philosophy of going into every negotiation as win-win or no deal, develop a long-term relationship, and integrity above all else. I really believe in this because what happens is your beliefs signal who you are and signal outward. I'm going to, can I get a volunteer from someone to read this quote?
Me.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Concept 6. The purpose of negotiation is to reach an agreement such that all parties have their needs satisfied to the degree that they are motivated to fulfill their commitments and to enter into subsequent negotiations. It's quote from Gerald Nirenberg.
Gerald Nirenberg, thank you very much, whoever was just reading. That was spectacular. Gerald Nirenberg has written a number of books. There's like 6 or 7 books on negotiating, including body language. I love this definition better than the one from Harvard Business School, because the key thing is to enter in, you want to create such a good negotiation that your client comes to you for more business. They're going to see you as easy to do business with, and they're going to come to you with more opportunities because you're so easy to do business with. It doesn't mean you're losing money. It doesn't mean that you're a pushover. It just means that they respect you and they enjoy having the conversation and discussion. So there's a good back and forth. This is critical. It can lead to more business. This has helped me in my career because people said, wow, you're easy to get along with, you're easy to do business with. When I was competing with IBM and Accenture, people would say, it's so much easier to do business with you all. And part of it was obviously our contracts people, but another part of it is I had developed a good rapport with somebody. All right, we're getting into the preparation phase. This is Joe Navarro again.
What I find in negotiations in real life is the absolute failure on the part of so many people to not anticipate what you will be asked. I'm Joe Navarro, former FBI agent and body language expert. Asking for a raise, haggling in a market, deciding where to go for dinner, interviewing a suspect. All of these are a form of negotiation. Every successful negotiation follows a pattern. There's the assessment phase, the engagement phase, and the transactional phase. If any one of these fail, at worst, you have a disaster. At best, this process takes forever. So if you were to ask me, well, when you were in the Bureau, what things did you do to negotiate effectively? Right off the top, I would tell you planning. Sitting down with, yellow legal pads and writing out, what is my objective? Clearly define, what is the objective here? What words am I going to use with this individual? If you're talking to a CEO that has 2 degrees, what are you going to use 4th grade words? You have to think of the audience. You have to think of what potentially they're going to throw at you, and not just what they may throw at you, how quickly they will throw it at you. Somebody that thinks fast, speaks fast, you're going to have to be able to throw that arrow back immediately. So it's planning, it's coordinating, it's rehearsing, sitting down with fellow agents and saying, okay, you're going to play the part of the bad guy. And yet I've been to, observer of many a negotiation where there's this absolute failure to think about what will be asked. And this all goes to, winging it, thinking that negotiations is just about the transaction, showing up and saying what maybe you've thought about, when in fact, the front end should be what takes up the most time.
Yeah, I wanted to play that because I could have said that, but it becomes so much better when Joe Navarro says it, because in the FBI, you have to do so much more planning. I want to implore you, beg you, whenever you go to a negotiating, if you're going to negotiate a car, if you're going to go to negotiate a house, take the emotion out of it. If you're going to negotiate for the bathroom, take the emotion out of it. Make a plan for it. Practice the idea of planning. What does that other person want? What do I want? And I'm going to give you a couple tools here.
What I
want you
find,
to put yourself, this is called the power of empathy. And you can see all the different pairs of shoes. You want to put yourself in the other person's shoes and see the world from their perspective. Okay, this is something from one of my books that I wrote a long time ago. By the way, I've lowered the price of my book as far as Amazon would go, because I'm going to use some of my material from this book called Clientize. And it's about building long-term relationships with clients. It's about understanding people's needs, but it's really about body language and also getting to the heart of things. Can I get somebody to read the first 2 of these bullets for me, please?
I would like to read them. First, I am putting my job on the line. Don't mislead me. I am placing in your hands proprietary information. Use it wisely.
That's right. Thank you very much. And somebody read the second 2 sentences, please.
I'll do, Joe.
Go ahead.
How do I know what you say will work? What if it doesn't? Then what? I'm trying to determine if I can trust you. How do I know if I can?
These are all the thoughts that are coming through from the client's perspective that you don't hear, or the other party's perspective. And they may not be thinking these exact words, but they're thinking similar words. If somebody can read the last 2, these last 2.
Thank you.
Oh,
I have a good
Leslie,
reputation.
how are you?
I'm doing great, Jack.
One of my great clients from Washington, D.C. A lot of experience here, a lot of smarts. Thank you, Leslie, for being here.
I have a good reputation in my organization. Will you help me keep it? Will you abandon me after the sale? Will you be around through thick and thin?
Thank you, Leslie. This is one of my Leadership Academy attendees who I learn a lot from. Thank you. All right, thank you very much. I'm not going to read any one of these to you. I'm going to put these on what I call cards that you can take with you, but it's starting with here's your side, here's their side, and understanding so you can get prepared to go into the negotiating aspect. This is also what I call a problem impact chart that I'm going to also going to give you with the cards. If you'll stay around, I'll put it in the chat so you can take it home with you. But what it does is it makes you stop and think about who it impacts here. Does everybody see the, I don't know if I need to put my pointer on. Let me do the laser thing again because the laser works better. Can everybody see who it impacts, how it impacts them, and how you're going to resolve it? So whenever you're going into a problem account or an issue, you want to map this out. If you're in a big company and you have an office, I like writing this down on the whiteboard. Who does it impact, whatever the problem is, and how it impacts them, whether it's money, time, quality, or something else. And then what can you do to solve it? And it gives you a chance ahead of time to be prepared before you walk into a negotiation, or even if there's a problem within the account. So this way, you're not winging it. All right, so here, let's walk into what I say, get into the arena. We're into the third phase, the most important phase. I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes or so here about what it is about getting into the arena. I'm going to cover 12 critical factors. If we can get through them all, great. If we don't, that's okay. We'll have time in the next session, next Saturday, to at least hit some of them. For right now, what I'd like you to do, I have this exercise. And what I'd like for you to do is snap your fingers 5 times. Is everybody done snapping? Okay.
Yep.
Now I would like for you to draw the letter E. Take your dominant hand. If you're right-handed, take your dominant hand and draw the letter E on your forehead. Okay. Draw the letter E on your forehead. Some of you did the letter E so other people could see it. Some of you did it so that you could see it. How many people did the letter E where you could see it over here on the right-hand side? Just show of hands.
Me.
How many people? Can I see some hands go up? How many people? 3. All right. How many people did the other way, the opposite way? Just show of hands. Okay, more. We got applause. Okay, more. Well, typically what this means is there's no science behind it. I've looked at the science and they said it's science, but it's an indicator if you're more of an extrovert or an introvert, okay? And so it could also, and I'm using the word could, it doesn't mean it's true, that you may be looking at your needs first before you're looking at the client's needs or the other person's needs. It could, doesn't mean it all the time. So I want to be careful about that. So I thought I'd just break it up and just get into this discussion because we're going to talk about the way we come in. I want to talk about how we walk in to an event. So we've prepared, we're ready. How do we come in to the meeting or walking into our office? And I want you to watch this video that Joe Navarro put together of how people who have supremely confidence in themselves enter a room.
People that are supremely confident, when they enter the room, they feel comfortable in that room. They don't hesitate to look around. Their gestures are smooth, but they're very broad. And that has to do with confidence. And for a lot of people, this is very difficult. I remember the great actress Helen Mirren saying, one of the most difficult things to learn as an actress is how to walk onto a scene. I've thought about that even in my career, how early on, the difficulty of mastering that. How do you walk onto a crime scene? How do you walk into the public and demonstrate that I am confident and so forth? We can all work a little bit on our nonverbal so we come across as more confident. When we talk about confidence, it's so many things. It has to do with our posture, the way we present, how we look. Where's our chin? Where are the eyes looking and gazing? Our gestures are loose, but they're smoother. As we walk about, we walk as though we are on a mission. I'm walking out to shake your hand, or I'm walking out to a podium, or I'm walking to where I'm going to sit. So the less confident we are, the less eye contact we make. The less confident we are, the more reluctant we are to look about. You know, when I look at someone I admire, like Colin Powell, when he walks onto a stage, even before he speaks, he has total command of the room, and he does that because he brings two things into this equation. One is a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience, plus he has shaped and defined himself into a statesman.
We've got to think of America as a family, where every member of the family cares about every other member of the family.
I think sometimes people mistake machismo or theatrical displays of power as confidence. Confidence can be very quiet. Jane Goodall, here's this ethologist, very meek, very mild, and yet wherever she goes, she commands the room. One of the things you notice is they sort of have this command of themselves, and in doing so, that command transmits outward.
All right, so there's a great way to own the room, to come into the room.
People that are...
I'm now going to go into this idea of continuously assessing. And what I'd like for you to do, I'm going to go through the next couple of slides rather quickly. I may skip over a couple, but I will, if I can get permission from the team, maybe we can cover the rest of the slides next Saturday. But I want you to always be assessing what's going on. And the only way you assess is becoming totally present. And that's critical. And how you're coming across and how the other person is reacting. You must be congruent. I talked about this before. You must be congruent, and it starts with what's going on in your mind. So whenever you're getting ready to come into a negotiation, you must have gone through the preparation stage and know what you want and know what the other party wants, know what you're going to say to get what you want, and know what you want to give away that others will have so that others can get what they want. So it starts with your head. The second one is your heart. This is where your emotions are. And your emotions have to be aligned with your thoughts in your head. The third is the hand. And I use the hand as a representation of your behavior. So these 3 H's are something that I've coined for being congruent with others, because you want to be totally in sync with yourself. And if you've ever not been in sync, you've noticed that you can feel when you're not in sync, because these 3 things are not in alignment with who you are, the three H's. Now let's look at James Bond. This is somebody who is congruent all the time. I know this is an actor, and I want to use James Bond as my example. People look for congruency. When we don't know someone, body language is our primary source of building an image about them. But if you look over here on the left, but we do this rather strangely or oddly. We as human beings don't look for what's a match. We look for what doesn't match. And what that means is we're looking for inconsistencies. You can see the words or the letters in inconsistencies. These are very subtle. You can still spell inconsistent, But if the body language doesn't match what the person is saying, or you can tell the emotion is not there behind the words or the actions, that's an inconsistency. And what happens, there's an incongruency, and we have a little bit of distrust. So you want to make sure you're creating that. Another part, and I'm not going to get into clothing, every culture is different, every office is different, but you want to look the part. The key part that I want to emphasize here is over to the right. Dress the part. Don't be a distraction. If you want to come across as credible, you want to dress at least better than your boss or your manager. You want to make sure if you go into a negotiation, if you're going to a lawyer's office, if they're dressed in casual clothes, you can still wear a jacket with no tie and come across fine. But this will give you, it's like a suit of armor, and people do judge us by how we dress. Don't get lackadaisical. We're not Steve Jobs. By the way, Steve Jobs dressed this way, and a lot of people picked up on the mock turtleneck and wanted to be just like him, but they weren't Steve Jobs. But look the part, be dressed appropriately. This is a critical factor, this handshake. As I'm going through these rather quickly, in 2 seconds, people make a judgment on your handshake. If you're not sure how you come across, go shake hands with people and practice this. For those of you students that are listening from colleges, this is a critical test because it tells the person who's shaking your hand whether you're hireable. Doesn't mean they're going to hire you, but they're going to say, is this person hireable? It also means people look to this as whether you can be trusted or whether you're a professional. It is a critical factor. It is the first time where a body language is used in the environment. I have a video here, but because of time, I'm going to skip it. Let's go here to this picture of two people shaking hands. On the left-hand side, don't have a limp fish handshake. Don't have a bone-crushing handshake. That doesn't do anything. It just sends a signal that you might be insecure. Creepy handshakes, I've had people shake my hand like this. I'm like, what are you doing? And don't have clammy palms. Try to wipe off your hands on your dress or your shoe or your pants. I want to point out what she's doing something as well, and you're not going to see this anywhere else. Her eyebrows are a little bit up higher, and that basically sending a signal like, I truly am glad to see you, besides the smile. So this is in sync with the smile, and you'll notice this other hand is open, like I pointed out before, and so it's not closed, it's open. And what this is signaling to the other person is, oh, this is a nice person. It's someone I can trust. It is someone that I can maybe do business with. I feel comfortable. I feel psychologically safe. All right, so here's his stance. Here's a gentleman with his arms crossed, but he's coming across as very confident and poised through his smiles and eyes. His eyes and smile are congruent. Even though he has his arms crossed, his arms come across in a powerful stance. All right, what do I want to do here? All right, this is where you take yourself off mute again. We're going to go into another game. This is called mirroring. If you take yourself off mute, how many places can you see where this mirroring is going on? Can anybody name them? What do you all see? Go ahead.
Your legs are crossed.
Legs are crossed. Very good.
A smile.
Smiles. Yes, very good. What else?
Eyes.
Eyes. They're smiling with their eyes. It's hard to see perhaps in the picture, but they're smiling with their eyes. Yeah.
Even
They both are sitting back.
Both are lean back. Yeah. Y'all are picking this up really well. They are mirrored. They don't even know they mirrored each other. So I got this from a psychology journal, and this was being taken, and they said, this is perfect mirroring. It's down to the point, I'll go through the slides rather quickly. First, the smile, the shirt is open. They even happen to be wearing the same clothes. Okay. The toes, they're pointed upward. Okay, it's just this has something to do with that they're getting along.
The
Their legs
toes
are crossed.
are pointed.
Yep, they're pointed, exactly. And their eyes. There's one other aspect, and I showed this to somebody yesterday in preparation, and they were like disagreeing with me, but I disagree. I want to point where the coffee cups are. Even they seem to be mirroring each other at the almost the exact same place. Now, I don't know if it was set up this way, but there's little things that'll set off the difference and get people to feel comfortable with you. This mirroring effect is really big. I've got a video here about mirroring. We're
Each other.
on this. I'm going to pass on that video because of time.
9.
All right. I want you to, this is a typical meeting room in your office. This is a great place for you to practice mirroring with others. Typically, you want to practice mirroring at least with your boss, or your boss may have a right-hand person that he or she goes to a lot. Make sure, just practice this mirroring. I'm going to give you one more tool to use. And typically, I want you to listen to the words that people use. And we use 3 different types of words. They're visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Visual means I'm using words like, I can see what you're saying. What you're saying is very clear to me. You all hear the words, the visual words I'm using? I see what you're saying. What you're saying is very clear to me, clear. You hear that? It has a bright future. That bright is visual. Now, the auditory person will say these. That rings a bell. There seems to be, that's a lot of static. So these, if you pay attention to the words that people use, and here's a chart, I can see it now, I see the picture. Those are visual words, okay? Down below, and this is a key aspect, these are auditory words. Most people use visual words, then it's auditory, and kinesthetic means it's a body or something in the movement. It feels right. By the way, this is from my book also over here. It feels right. I'm groping for an answer. It's an intense issue. So if you want to get on the same page with somebody, you want to listen for these words and start using auditory or visual words or kinesthetic words. Don't have to necessarily use the same words as them, but it will help you get in sync with them. And you can practice that again in that big conference room that I just showed you the picture on. What else do I want to show here? I'm going to do one more thing. We will wrap it up at this. Whenever you're in a meeting, who has power? And I want to do this. I want to show you who has power. This little social cartography. I want you to, when you're in a room the next time, I want you to draw the initials of the people down on a piece of paper and go around the room, just like the room was back here. Just draw their initials around on a piece of paper. Then I want you to do this. I want you to put a circle around each one of their names as you go around. And there's a reason for this. And the reason is you're going to put an X next to the name in the circle every time someone speaks. Okay. Does this make sense so far, everyone? This is how you tell if there's power.
It's a great
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So you can see DF here he's speaking an awful lot. And a lot of people think because somebody speaks a lot, it means that they're the boss or they have the power. And we tend to, because we're social animals, social creatures, we tend to gravitate to the person who's speaking the most. Now, what happens is the next time, I want you to, every time someone speaks to a particular person, draw an arrow from that person's name to the person who they're talking to. All right, I'm going to say this again. Every time someone speaks to a specific or a particular person, draw an arrow to that person's name, to from that person's name to the person they're talking to. So it looks like this.
Joe, thank
Yeah.
you so much. I think we just got to there.
I'm sorry?
No, I say thank you for all this masterclass. It was very interesting. I learned a lot.
Great, thank you very much. But this is yeah. Just a second. I'm going to finish here. But here's the last part of this right now, and this will tell you who the boss is. You'll see it's JM, and he or she is the person in charge. I want to thank everybody for their time. I want to also remind everybody that at the end of this presentation today, we have the master class for next Wednesday, next Saturday. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to go through all the material. Geraldine, you wanted to say something and end the class?
Yes, I just wanted to just say that I wanted to invite everybody to the next workshop, which is on the July 20th. And if you have some more questions, we would be happy to answer them. We just you can subscribe to the LinkedIn page or YouTube as well, and we will contact you as soon as possible. Thank you very, very much, Joe, for this.
All right, thank you, Joe.
It's very interesting. I thank everybody who joined it, and thank you once again to all the people who were with us.
Great, thank you, Geraldine. And I'll stay on for any kind of questions that anybody has. I also would like to say thank you to our sponsors. Again, great job to our sponsors. And if I can help you or be of service, I look forward to helping you in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So actually, we have a question.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Yes, go ahead with the
question. This was from Libo. Which
Libo.
forms of body, yeah. Which forms of body language do you use to make communication with foreigners easier?
I've got another question that came directly to me from Chris Justice. Chris Justice is on the call. Chris, are you on this call or have you left? He may have left. All right. Chris Justice is another client of mine, CEO of a company. I didn't know he was on the call. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question, Geraldine?
Oh, sorry. I just 1 second, please.
Libo.
From Libo. Is he still there? Thank Libo.
Libo, do you want to ask the question directly?
Okay, I have it here. Which forms of body language do you use to make communication with foreigners easier?
Which form of communication that I would foreigners? When we say foreigners, when I go to a different country, I make sure that I am talking to people and I understand the culture before I even come in. Every culture is a little bit different, so I want to make sure that I'm talking at a pace that's not too fast, but I also want to make sure that I'm not assuming anything. And but I also want to point out at the same time, a lot of countries and a lot of business people have become, I want to say, more Americanized, and that's the wrong term, but are familiar with some of our customs. So in my working with people over in Europe and also the Middle East and also India, I try to make sure that I watch their body language. Because when I was over in India, I gave a presentation, everybody was shaking their head this way. Everybody see my head? They were shaking their head. I had 50 people going like this. And at the end of the presentation, the meeting organizer, the presentation organizer came up, said that was a great speech. And I said, I don't think it was. He said, why do you think it wasn't a great speech? And in fact, during the presentation, when everybody was going like this, I started working harder. I was like, oh boy, they're not happy with me. And then they were doing this even more. And then I said, oh boy, I got to even work even harder. And then they shook their head even more back and forth. And I told the organizer at the end, I said, they weren't happy. They were all shaking their head. And he looked at me like this, like, oh, you're from America. I forgot. This means yes in India. And this means no.
Yes, I agree because I'm an Indian. Yeah, we do like that.
Yes. I was so depressed. I was like, they're not getting it. They don't like my presentation. I almost stopped presenting and they were going like this the entire time. And I got scared that I was not communicating. So become aware of the cultures. It's really fascinating and it's really great because you learn so much. I have now the greatest story in the world when everybody was doing this. And I was like, oh my gosh, they disagree. I've got to get off the stage. So was that a good story? It's a true story.
Yes, I have a question myself. It's
Yes.
about how it works when there's a table of negotiation, sorry, in the UN with so many countries. How do they get it to a final decision or when they want to sign a treaty?
No.
Or
Well,
that would be very hard to read everybody at the same time.
Yes, and I can't answer that one. I'm not qualified to answer that one. And I think it's one of the reasons why, and everybody has their own self-interest, and they should. Everybody has their own country's interest, as long as it's honorable. And that's where I go to. When we can be honorable and fair, we can all find a place. And I'll show you a slide that I have. It's your role and your demeanor. If you come across, then if you come across as assertive and uncooperative, you're competing over here. I'll show you this. I'll get my pointer. So this is all, I don't think this is in my book, but you're competing if you're assertive and uncooperative. But if you're assertive and you are cooperative, you're collaborating. Okay. If you're passive and you're cooperating, you're accommodating. You're a dog. And I don't want you to be a dog jumping through somebody's hoops. You want to be here. You want to be assertive enough. That means you've prepared, you know what you want, but you're cooperative because you want to give others what they want. You're going to collaborate. And that's where it's going to be. If you have to, you can move and find the compromising state. And this is why I love this graphic, because I can talk to it. Is that helpful to the person who asked?
Sure. Sure. I don't know, Geraldine, if we have 1 minute for a final question to you.
Oh, I'll stay on as long as anybody wants to. I don't want anybody to feel like they have to stay on. But anybody who needs to drop off, please go ahead.
No, I don't. Indeed, I have this question for you, Yo. As I usually do, complicated question for you to put you in trouble. But regarding the multiple and differences of body language, so since there is no one size fits all when negotiating with a global team, what would be the strategy to have a neutral gesture or body language in order to suit with everybody's body language and cultural customs?
Yeah, so this is a difficult question, like you said.
I know.
One of the things that I recommend, and I don't like to go into negotiations with a bunch of people. I'll tell you why. Because the other people are not as skilled a negotiator as I believe I am. And what I find with people who go into a negotiation, some people are more worried about themselves looking good. And so they sort of take up the room and they command the room. They talk too much. They try to make themselves the center of attention rather than trying to make the other party the center of attention. I try to go in with the contracts person. I'm not a lawyer, somebody who can work with me on the contract so she or he can figure out how we negotiate terms. I don't like going with a big team because a big team makes a lot of big egos. And what happens is a lot of people are too busy pressing their point rather than trying to read the room to understand things. So I hope, and I also want to point out if it's international, I'm always, if I'm going to be the top negotiator, I'm going to work really closely with the person who is on the ground, who has the relationship with the other party. And typically that is the person, whether it's the account manager or the managing director of that country or that. So I want to make sure, but the key is to make sure I understand the body language or the other person understands the body language. I know that's not a good answer, but in a way, I wanted to get that point across. If you're really good at negotiating, don't bring in a bunch of people. You're going to dilute your ability to get to the other person's interests and understand the other person's interests. Does that make sense?
Yes. I bring this to home. Keep your ego out of the equation, right? And don't try to be the center of the attention.
Yes.
Thank you.
I know we've got a lot of project management people on the call, and they always think if we end the call on time, that's a good call. I want to break us of that habit, by the way, because if there's people who have questions and are still on the call, I want to make sure I answer all your questions. It's a difference between time and quality of making sure people understand and helping getting people the information. Because nobody's obligated to stay on the call. If you need to drop, please don't hesitate. I know everybody's so busy. Any other questions?
I don't. I think you answered all my questions today. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Can I
I have a question, Joy.
Yes, please.
Thank you for your generosity because you have more time with us. But in my question is, how can I combine both the techniques that you have gave us in order to be effective in a short time?
So this is a great question. And I really thought hard how to answer this question, because I said, what I want to give you, because does everybody see my phone? We are so busy looking down at our phone. I want you to lift up your head. And I got this from Joe Navarro in his videos and his books. He said, lift up your head. Start observing things. We don't observe things anymore. If you're walking down the streets, look to see where cars are parked. Like you're an FBI agent or Secret Service or whatever country you're in. Just notice, start noticing people. Look at them when they're walking past you, whether they're smiling. Greet them. Try your smile. Smile with your eyes. Raise your eyebrows when you look at them. Practice that. Practice these little things that we went through today with family members. When your spouse comes home and you're turned to the kitchen and you may be looking out the window or into the sink, and your spouse come home and you say, hi, honey, or and you don't turn around, that's a bad thing. Put the stuff down in the kitchen sink or whatever you're doing, turn around to your spouse, look him or her in the eyes and say, hi, honey, with a smile, raise your eyebrows, and first of all, your spouse is going to go, what's wrong? Okay, what's wrong? This is different. But practice these things. Practice these with your children. Practice that first initial step. You don't have to shake hands with everybody, but when you shake hands, practice what I taught you. Have a good handshake. Make them go, wow, this is a professional. And then you'll start to understand. Make sure your thoughts are congruent with your heart and your body language. Know what you want in life. Have a philosophy, win-win or no deal. You want everything, you're going to do everything for the long-term relationship and do everything with integrity. If you do those three things when you're talking and being with others, your life will change. You'll come across, not that you're trying to come across, because you'll be more sincere. You're going to be more authentic. You're going to be very trustworthy because you're going to be more trusting. I'm going to say that again. You're going to be more trustworthy because you're going to be more trusting. Practice these things. Practice, and you will find your life begins to change for the better.
Thank you so much, Joy. And thank you, Geraldine, for the time.
Joe, one last question, please. You talk about something about the mood, right? The mood is contagious. How do I start getting myself into a good mood if I have a hard week or I have a hard day and then I have a meeting and I have to switch from north to south, from bad mood to good mood? Is there any tip to change that feeling inside yourself?
Yes. I'm going to give you several different things. Just so everybody knows, I've been studying success and how the mind works for the past 30 years. And I've been studying leadership. And there's several different techniques. Before going into that other meeting, I want you to take out your notebook. And everybody should have a notebook, whether it's this type of a notebook. Okay, I have a nice notebook and I have lots of spiral bound, cheaper notebooks. Write down all those troubling thoughts into your notebook. Get those thoughts onto paper. Don't type it into a computer or your iPhone. Say, these are the things that just happened in the meeting. And then draw a line underneath that and go, okay, how do I want to come across in this next meeting? I want to come across as sincere. I want to come across as pleasant. And all of a sudden, and then you can say, I am pleasant. I am sincere. And by using these words, you start to switch. And then when you go into the meeting genuinely say to the person, I'm so glad to see you. Do you see my face, my smile? Robinson, I'm so glad to see you. Because what's going to happen, Robinson, you're going to smile back at me. And what's going to happen is my neurons are going to mirror what you just did because you were mirroring my neurons. Does that make sense?
Of course.
We've connected. And now I have actually changed my whole body and language. Now there's one more thing I'm going to give you, another technique. Bill Clinton used this, and with politics aside, he would take a problem, and I practiced this. I said, oh, this is a good technique. When he had a problem, he would take it and put it in a box in his head. And he would take it and then put it in a box, and he would shrink it down, and he would put it in the back of his head. He would do that with a mindset. So I'm going to put this problem in the back of the box, and I'm going to deal with it later. And it's a great relief to your mind. Because you say, I'm going to deal with it later. And then, by the way, if you want to take it to another degree, say, I'm going to deal with it tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And then you make an appointment with yourself, whatever the problem is, you stop worrying about it. Say, I'm going to worry about this tomorrow at 3 o'clock. And your mind goes, okay, as long as I know it's at 3 o'clock, I'll wait. And you literally write it down. But the other way is, the last thing is, I said this earlier, write down your problems, because your problems aren't really that bad or as big as you think they are. But your brain, because they're swirling around up there, if you write it down, you put it on paper, you go, oh, it's not that big a deal. Or if you've got a lot of things to do, make sure you work from a to-do list. A to-do list, and if you've got a lot of things to do, put it on paper. What will happen is those 300 things that were in your head are really only 3 or 4. But because they're going around in circles, it feels like 300 things. And it will relieve your mind. Thank you for that question. I love that question.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Anyone else? We still have 40 people on the call. If you're shy, don't hesitate, please. Go ahead. Pratim?
I think Level has a question. Level.
Hey, Wendy. Jeez, I don't know why I was not getting my unmute here.
Hi, Lebo.
Joe. Hi, Joe.
Where are you calling from, Lebo?
This was awesome, but just one question.
Okay.
In your own thoughts, how would you think society would be without body language?
How would society be without body language?
Yeah.
Oh, I think I think we would be a very poor society without body language. I think our bodies convey so much meaning, and there's so much richness between cultures that I think it would be a very boring world if we didn't have body language. That's a great question. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Joe, I just would like to comment something, that sometimes the cell phone kills the body language or the cell phone usage because we pay attention to the cell phone, right? We forget and don't pay attention body language. So if we continue like that, maybe we'll be killing body language because of the usage of the cell phone.
That's actually, Joe Navarro talks about that in his last book. Supreme Confidence, I think is his name of his book. And he said, if you can put down, but you see, now that you've been in this class or this session, you now know that you can put this down and lift your head up and start to observe what is going around. We think this is where the world is, and we've become addicted to the phone. And I agree with Joe Navarro on this. If we can lift up and get around and look around, there's so much more to the world. And stop scrolling. One of the things that I just read, and it came in from the growth mindset. There's a gentleman, I can't remember his name, a doctor. He works at Stanford with Carol Dweck, but he's talking about how the mind grows. He said, if you cannot open up your phone first thing in the morning, don't touch the phone. Go for a walk for 15 minutes first thing in the morning, and then come back, have coffee. Still don't touch the phone. And then do some reading. And this is my belief. If you read for an hour every morning, still not touch the phone, you will be much better off, and your mind starts to open up. You become happier and your brain grows. He goes on even further and talks about the problems that you're working on. If you write down the problem and say, this is the problem that I'm going to solve, and then you solve the problem and you give yourself more goals, your brain starts to grow even more because of the synaptic connections between the neurons. And it's a matter of building up your willpower. And they're trying to do some science as to Alzheimer's, as to whether the more problems that you continuously work on in your mind by getting it down on paper and you solve, but more importantly, setting goals for yourself, like learning how to present, learning how to negotiate, learning how to do these things that are soft skills. We call these soft skills, which are really hard skills. Your brain will start to grow. And I know there's a couple of people on here, help you build not only competence, but confidence in yourself. This is a subject I love. I could talk all day about this. I won't, but I will. So, thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, Joe. This is Joyce. Thank you.
Joyce, you're calling from the Middle East, I believe, right?
Yeah, I come from Middle East. I was talking to you last time when you had the session for growth mindset.
Yes, thank you for being.
I guess you remember the question that I asked you for the experience that I had for many years back.
Ah, yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, right.
So Joyce, do you mind if I repeat your question that you had? Can I repeat it? So Joyce asked me, how can I deal with, because I talked about a lot of our problems stem from childhood experiences. Like, for example, and I use the example of getting up in front of a class and making a speech in 3rd or 4th grade and everybody laughing at us. And we remember that event in our mind because we played it over and over again. And it keeps us from making speeches because our brain, it registered with our brain, and our brain can't tell the difference between it happening once or after we replay it over and over again, because if we replay it over and over again, it feels like to the brain it happens 6 or 7 or 100 times more. So it's like it gives us this big fear factor of making a speech. And it happened to me. And Joyce asked, how can I get over it? And Joyce, did you do what I asked you to do?
Yes, I have checked for some of the Toastmasters nearby. I guess I'll be trying to take them up. You had suggested to try to join some Toastmasters club nearby and see that.
I gave Joyce two pieces of advice. Join Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And because the more she speaks in front of public, by the way, those second graders, they don't remember it ever. But Joyce and people like me remember it over and over again. And we all do this. We remember something that happened bad with the boss the other day where we screwed up or made a mistake. The bosses completely forgot about it, but we replayed it in our mind. So I gave Joyce.
Yes, it happens.
Yes, it happens to all of us. Joyce, thank you for bringing that up. And so I told Joyce, go join Toastmasters. They'll teach you how to speak and you will desensitize yourself by getting up in front of others. I used to stutter and I couldn't, and I would turn completely red whenever I had to speak or if a female ever spoke to me, I would be so embarrassed. And I had to work on that and get over
Can't
it.
believe.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, hard to believe that you stutter, yes.
Yeah, I stutter.
And one more thing, yeah, regarding the mobile phones and the usage of the time that you mentioned. Like, I just recently, like, I keep try to study new things as I at home right now. So I do have this distractions, as you said. We go to the phone to see what is there, what is the WhatsApp there, what is somebody has sent me a message. So what do I do with the phone is I'm on the phone so that I don't take the phone until the time is up.
Yeah.
So that is the one technique that I use with the phone rather than giving it away.
I think
like half an hour I put it.
Yeah, I think if you can stop scrolling and stop going to the phone, because what's actually happening is you have dopamine. Dopamine means it's a natural chemical in the brain. And every time you get a message or a text message or a WhatsApp message or somebody likes something on LinkedIn or somebody likes something on Facebook or something that you posted or you see something, what happens is, oh, bing, bing, somebody likes me. And we mistake somebody likes me on technology with somebody who likes me over here in real life. And so we get these hits of dopamine and we become addicted to those hits.
Yeah.
And then if nobody messaged us back, we get a little depressed because we haven't gotten our hit of dopamine. And we've got to wean ourselves, and wean means we got to move ourselves away from those hits. So we don't put our face going, okay, how come nobody's hit me yet? How come nobody's said something to us? So I agree with you. We need to put it in the box, move it away. Especially
I completely agree with you guys. Sorry to interrupt. I completely agree with you. Thanks, Joey, for a wonderful session. And I mean, just related to this topic, I just wanted to share that I have completely moved out from Facebook, WhatsApp, anything which is not related to professional. I'm only on LinkedIn 24/7. I mean, that's my only addiction for the day, for the time being from the last 6 months. No Instagram, no Facebook, nothing, no social media, so that it keeps your mind away from something which is not necessary.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. And Pratim, I think congratulations. The people that I work with my clients, a lot of the attendees, I have 150, 70 people attend some of the leadership classes, and we talked about this yesterday. One of the younger ladies who was on everything, she's dropped almost everything so that she could be more focused. And she said, my life is actually healthier, I'm happier, and I don't miss what I was doing with Facebook and Instagram. And what was the other one? TikTok was the other one she was using.
TikTok, yeah.
Good job.
Instagram, TikTok, yeah.
Good job. Get yourself off those.
And especially the morning routine, what you said, like, I mean, you shouldn't be getting out with your phone. I mean, just straight away, keep it aside, keep it for charging, move out, get some fresh air, have some, I mean, like, walk around, get to know people, have some interaction. At least if you don't know a stranger, someone bumps into you, just smile, and then, I mean, see how the things work. Something magical will happen. Something, I mean, that's called social networking, I
Yes.
believe.
Yes, that's very good. Very good advice. Thank you. That was great. That was great. Who else? And don't forget the workshop. Mariana just posted the workshop. If you see the link there, please join us. If you like what you saw here, there'll be more material that we're going to go through. We'll actually show you how to use the techniques next week. Lebo and I will going to go through an opportunity to show you what works and what doesn't work. Lebo is probably going to win